Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Super excited to have Jessica on the show with us. Jessica brings a wealth of knowledge about fitness, about life in general, and we're going to explore her past and what her dreams were as a child and go from there and learn about what all the exciting things that she's doing right now. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank you
Glad
so
to
much
have you
for
here.
having me. Thank you.
Okay, so this is my story about how we met. And you may not remember, but I came into your new business, and actually, it's probably not new. It's been around for a year and a half, maybe.
We're going on 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's called Smithville, and it's in Loomis, California. And it's a coffee shop, natural shop. Come get a great protein shake, enjoy some company. But I took some clients in there. And I'm in real estate, and we were sitting around doing contract work. And you were up at the counter, and I wanted to get him a coffee. So I went up to the counter, and I could not stop myself from looking at your arms. I was like, oh my God, this woman's arms are shredded. And I thought, but they're not like bulky man arms.
Yeah.
They're just hot, sexy arms.
Thank you.
And I was sitting there thinking, I want arms like that, but I probably don't want to work that hard because I know how I am. But I thought, as I was sitting here just getting the coffee, I kept thinking, gosh, the discipline this person must have to have gotten to this place. And I thought, I want to get to know her better. I want to find out what the scoop is. So I asked for your phone number.
Yeah.
I said, do you train? Do you work people out? And you're like, believe it or not, I'm expanding next door and I'm bringing my business over. So I thought, very cool. Well, I haven't really looked you up. I haven't done any homework into you, but there was something that drew me to having you on here. And I don't know if it was kind of a God thing or if it was just about find out about this woman because she seems cool.
Yeah.
So that's why you're here.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about Jessica.
Well, I am kind of a risk taker by nature, kind of always been wired like that. Didn't know what, like what my strengths and weaknesses were, but grew up in a military family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, adapted to change like very well. And kind of landed in this area right after college. I worked at Intel in Folsom.
Okay.
And was a criminal justice major. So one of those people that went to school for one thing and completely did a different career path. But my mom was diagnosed with cancer, like my last year and a half of college. So I would go work for the FBI. My dad worked at the Pentagon at the time and at Quantico Base as a Marine. He retired after 45 years. And I thought I would go into criminal justice and work from their headquarters at Quantico. And when I found out my mom was sick, I have siblings at the time, they were like 9. I just knew that I couldn't leave her here as a single mom. And so, the Lord took care of me and opened the door at Intel. I knew some people over there, interviewed and kind of landed there. And that kind of put me in the business world. It took me out of like criminal justice and like case studies and me wanting to be a Charlie's Angel. And
I could totally visualize you doing the Charlie's Angel thing.
I was like, I'm going to solve crime cases and I'm going to look like, so cool doing it.
Yeah.
So I was vice president at Chico State. Like I was very involved.
Is that where you graduated from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I learned quickly as a young adult to think on my feet and to learn how to pivot, because that was such a transitional time in my life. I was also a mother at the time. I have a daughter that's 28, and I had her when I was young with my high school sweetheart. And I come from a small town in Northern California. Our parents went to school together. Our grandparents went to school together. Our great-grandparents went to school together. So very generational. Yeah.
So everybody knew your business too.
Yeah. Yeah. But, in something like that, you truly are a friend with these people. Like I still call his mom grandma. My son calls him Grandma Diane. Very especially with the passing of my mom. So I ended up losing her at a young age. She still is home for me. And one of the things about the businesses I have and who I am is, there's a lot of things and a lot of places that we can adventure in life, but I'm always looking for that place that feels like home. And I don't know if we pass over a threshold at a certain age where instead of chasing, we're trying to get back to, like trying to find our way back to that place that feels like home. And so maybe, I don't know, in my experience, I was out trying to create that and make it look different. But what I find is I want to go back to what I know.
Do you feel, though, that is inside you as well? Because I think a lot of times people try to create home on the outside, but it's the internal home or your piece that when you found your faith, maybe you can talk about that a little bit, because I think that grounds you and gives you that sense of home internally.
Yeah, actually, that's really a good point, because I think I was just like a typical in my mid-20s, like chasing a dream or chasing success or wanting to look a certain way, but never considering like what it felt like to be a certain way. So I looked the part, but it didn't match the internal world. And
your internal talk track, or
internal talk, how I felt, the way that I processed things in my mind, it was just not in alignment. You know what I mean? So, and it took me a while because people don't really talk about it. So everyone was out of alignment.
And it's hard when you're attractive. I know people may watch this and think, oh yeah, but she's got it easy because she's attractive. But many times that's a challenge in itself because people think you're a certain way. They think you're, this type of person, and then when the inside and the outside don't match, when you don't feel that you're as attractive as your exterior, or when you don't feel that you have what people think you have, then that's where that negative self-talk comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah. So going back to like the spiritual side of that, I was working at Intel. I was on their conversion team. There was 2 of us in the entire corporation. I was managing multi-billion-dollar contracts around the world.
Oh, wow.
I worked in a company where I was getting on a private plane, flying somewhere, single mom flying home, getting up in the middle of the night to take calls all around the world. It looked very attractive on the outside.
Very glamorous, I'm sure.
Very glamorous, but very much expected to be able to work anytime, anywhere,
Like a realtor.
Yeah, I'm at gymnastics at the computer out, talking to somebody somewhere in the world. And, at the time I thought, wow, I made it. Like I truly made it. And it was in the middle of the night one night, and my phone had broke, so I didn't have my cell phone, and I didn't have a home phone. And it was back with MySpace was like a thing.
Oh, gosh.
And I was working, and the MySpace clicked up, and the guy that I was dating at the time lived in Bakersfield, and he's like, hey, so-and-so is trying to get a hold of you. Something's wrong with your mom. And I was able to reach out. My mom had been rushed to the hospital. And I knew it wasn't good because we lived up by the Oregon border in a town called Etna. And she was at the hospital in Chico.
Oh.
So, but this is a woman that was extremely resilient. And even in her, now looking back, like even in her times of probably her biggest weaknesses and pains going through the journey that she had with her sickness, like I didn't know that. I don't think you can look at somebody.
She didn't share it with you.
Right. You can't process pain, I think, on this side truly and know what that looks like. And so I got to the hospital in the middle of the night, and she was in a coma. And I just remember thinking, like, not even being able to register that that's what was happening. I just thought, well, she's not feeling good. I had seen her not feel good before. She'll be fine. And then the doctor had come and talked to me and said, listen, your mom doesn't have a will that's done. You're the eldest of your family. You're going to have to make medical decisions for her. And at the time, my siblings they were actually 8 at the time, twin siblings. And
how old were you when this was like
27?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I just remember thinking like, no, she'll be fine. Like, it'll be fine. And then the next day, rolled around and there was nothing happening. And he said, you're really going to need to make a decision. And my mom hated hospitals, hated them. And I just remember sitting there and I was crying. My brother and sister are pacing. Like we're all trying to like really digest what is happening. And I just thought, I've got to get her out of here. Like she wouldn't want to be here if she could make the decision. And so they loaded her up in an ambulance and they drove her 4.5 hours up to Northern California.
While she was in the coma?
When she was in a coma, and put her in hospice, which again, I didn't really know what hospice was. I'd never heard of it before. And so I'm driving up there and I'm still like, I think I was just numb. And I think when you get to that point in life, whatever the circumstances are,
you're in go mode. You're just getting it done.
You're getting done, but you're also not able to process things real time. And so we get up to hospice and we are bombarded because now we're close to home with people coming in to see her. And, she's non-responsive and all I could do was just lay with her. And that night she ended up dying. And we had like all of our family in the house. And I remember it was like 3:02 in the morning and she did a really deep breath and it was loud and it was scary. And it woke me up and I just went, oh my gosh. And somebody had come in and said, she's passing over. And they had said to me, like, what an honor for you to be able to be with her. Like you're literally like passing her off to heaven, right? You're handing her over to Jesus. And at the time I was like, that is the most insane thing. Like, I'm hurting. That was the most awful and devastating and scary. Like, that sound was actually traumatizing to me for a really long time. And not to mention the days that followed, because I was a decision maker on what to do, and it was a lot to figure out.
Yeah, to process.
Not to mention that I'm in the real world with a career, and they're like, you have a 3-day grievance, and then you need to report back to work. So if you've never been in that situation, like, to figure out how to, like, what to do with someone's house, these kids that now are orphaned, no will.
And then you have a child.
And then I have my daughter, which thank God it was like summertime, so she went and was with her dad. It was just a lot of moving parts and a lot of decisions. And so I ended up having her funeral. I got home at like 3:00 in the morning and then had to report back to work. And it didn't take me more than a few days to know that, like, I could not do that job anymore. That I just couldn't sit in a cubicle and not have human experience with somebody going through a very human time. But at that time in my life, I didn't have a relationship with the Lord or know anything bigger than myself.
So what prompted the relationship?
Yeah. So
was it the comment that you took offense to almost maybe at that moment, or was that comment that someone made to you about the fact that you were passing her off to heaven? Yeah. Was that a trigger for you at that time?
I just never really thought about, like, where do we go after this? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, where did she go? You know, like, literally, where did she go? Like, and I think too, when you're hurting, like, the way that I felt something shifting in me, but I couldn't explain it. And so I actually went through a really bad, in the book it shares, but I actually packed my bags and moved to Nashville. And kind of, I would call it a spiritual journey, but didn't know that that's what it was. I was kind of running away, and lived there with my best friend and just thought I'm going to get away for the summer and grieve, and ended up living there longer and kind of had like my come to Jesus moment where I was like,
literally,
there's just something more out there, but I was still very much still in the struggle of figuring it out, you know, and I was using, you know, at the time drinking wine and trying to make it go away, or having a cigarette, or just very much in the numbing stage.
I can't even imagine you smoking a cigarette.
I know, weird, right?
Now.
Yeah, my son actually just learned, like, in the last couple, probably weeks, that I had smoked a cigarette. It was very weird for him and I at that moment, because it's just not who I am today. Yeah. But yeah. So long story short, it wasn't still then that I had found true, like, the Holy Spirit and the healing part of it. I actually was fighting the state of California from a distance from my siblings. And it called me back here. And that was a hard task, just because I didn't really know who I was, and I didn't really understand my own grieving. And so when I came back to California, I had my come to Jesus moment where I was on my knees and I'm like, I don't know who I'm praying to, but I now have nothing. I had lost the house that was in our family for, you know, almost 100 years because of having to pay lawyers to get custody of my siblings. Like, just these things that you can't even fathom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And all those things took me to my next heartbreak that was worse than the heartbreak before that. And it really did, like, unhinge me to the place that where I had nothing. And I was like, Lord, how am I supposed to pay for not only my own child, but now this child that I'm taking on as a single mom, and I've lost everything. Like, I had nothing. And I just remember in my living room that day, I was on my lunch break. I was working for Intercom. I wanted to stay in the music industry, so I was a sales rep for the radio station, and I was just bawling. And I just felt the comfort and the peace of the Holy Spirit fall on me. And it was the first time I didn't feel scared in my own skin. Like, I couldn't explain what was happening, but it was almost like it inspired me to chase whatever I had felt, because I hadn't felt peace in a really long time. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted that. And so that opened the yellow pages that used to get dropped at our doorsteps back in the day.
Goodness, I haven't seen one of those in ages.
Right? I started actually interviewing Buddhas and pastors. I would call and leave messages, and who would ever call me back and give me their time, I'd meet them on my lunch break. And I would tell them, I would cry and tell my story. I would make grown men cry, because I think they could relate that I was going through this spiritual experience, but I think that I almost could pull you into it. Like, I think that I have a gifting of letting people feel my pain, which is interesting, right?
But it's not feeling your pain. So there's some people that will pull people in, because I'm sitting here experiencing your energy and everything, and it's not sometimes pulling you towards my pain so that you empathize, so that it's all about me. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But I feel like you're doing that to help them grow, not to say it's all about me.
Right. No, I was desperate. And I had no pride. I had nothing humanly that held me back. I knew I couldn't live like that anymore. And I knew that I didn't have anything in me that could take me to where I needed to go.
So do you feel like there was a moment where you had a dream where maybe God spoke to you or something, in the gal I interviewed last month, we talked about there was a seed planted and that seed began to grow. So where did the dream come from while you were healing to do all the things that you've done now?
Well, I would research places to go, and interesting enough, I ended up at a women's group in Folsom at a church. I had found through research, and when I sat in the room, it was women older than me, which I was seeking wisdom. I had lost a mom, and now I'm 2.5 years into this process, and they were beautiful, and they were put together, and they had careers. So it gave me something to look at that had been missing on what I wanted to be. And by the end of that meeting, it was an AA meeting. So it was confusing because I'm I loved it, but I also was they're speaking over themselves. I am an alcoholic, or, you know what I mean? And so for me, I was well, I'm not an alcoholic, but I really want what they have. And I felt safe in the room with them. I mean, I'm talking probably 30, 40 years older than me. So I continued to go back to that meeting, and I met some of the most wonderful women ever. And they really invested in me as I was trying to understand who I was. And they gave me tools on things to write.
I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah.
What an interesting place to go.
So strange.
Who would think to go there? Obviously, it's a faith-based program, so that part makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're going to have people who've had a lot of big, hairy experiences that chose alcohol as their outlet.
Yeah.
So it kind of actually really makes sense, but who would think to go to an AA meeting that doesn't have a problem with alcohol?
Well, and I didn't know it was an AA meeting when I went.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense because I'm wow.
Yeah, it was a women's meeting.
Okay.
So it might have, and it's been so long, it might have said AA. I wouldn't have known what AA meant.
Okay.
It could have said that. I just saw women's meeting and it was a church, and I'm I'm there.
I'm there.
So, but that definitely opened the door into having other people invest into me and to help me realize and to be honest with you, when I was healing too, I wanted to put myself in a category. Well, maybe I do have a drinking problem because when I drank, I got really depressed, and then I would be that wasn't my problem. My problem is that I have almost 27 years of built up emotions and questions and fears and things that I now realize I might not get those questions answered because she's no longer here. So it's a part of you, the things that we would take for granted. I was experiencing whoa, wait, I have so many questions about who I am. So it took me on this healing process, and through that, I found therapists, and, eventually didn't stay in that group very long, but still had very, very good friendships still to this day out of that group. And one thing led to the other. And to be honest with you, I think that the way that I'm wired is I have to have my own experience. You can tell me all the head knowledge you have, but I want to experience that myself. And so having the Holy Spirit and have that happen in my home is something through all the years that no one can take away from me. They can't tell me it's too religious. They can't tell me, oh, you were in the... No, it was a full-on experience that took over my body.
That was yours.
That was mine. And then I came into learning about the Bible. So I have always been kind of different in the way that my life has unfolded, to where it's just been such a personal relationship with the Lord.
So when did you become focused on fitness?
Yeah. Well, I was a gymnast, as a little girl.
Okay.
And I competed all around gymnasts. So discipline was something that was embedded in me from the
military family.
And then my parents divorced, and we moved to Northern California. My dad was in Virginia. And there was a lot of sadness because I had gone 2 years without seeing him after that. My parents didn't get along, and we were so far away, and he traveled a lot with his job. And so part of getting through, I just think, feeling sad about not being able to see him again, I got into gymnastics, and my mom actually was a military wife, so she had dedicated her life to him. So she had no education, and then we moved to this town that's a farming town. There's no jobs. And so it was the first time that I had realized that we didn't have money. You know, like I never worried about it before, but I had realized like there were things we didn't have. And then I watched my mom go through severe depression after the divorce, and she ended up getting breast cancer within by 6th grade, my mom had breast cancer. And so I saw sickness, and that really made me realize that I wanted to do what I could do to take care of me. And I was really scared to see somebody I loved so much so sad, because I couldn't do anything and I didn't understand it. And she was going through a life experience that she didn't have tools for.
And so I feel like, and it sounds like from what you just said, that you feel that there's also a connection between being physically healthy as it relates to your mind.
Oh, yeah. I think that saved me through my childhood, because I didn't really understand mental clarity or mental health. You know, I don't like to label things, because you label it and you think certain kinds of people. But I think that it's important to say that, especially as we age, you know, I'm in my 40s now, that we have to be responsible with taking care of our mental health, cognitive, just like we would our bodies. And one thing that I would feel is depressed. I call it like the quicksand, and I can tell when I'm getting there. And if I go in that, it's very dangerous. And so I don't want to go there. So I have to identify when I'm getting close. And that could be people, situations, places, whatever. And so the gymnastics has kept me in a place where I feel like I can be intentional about understanding that. I also don't put anything in my body that alters my state of mind. I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink caffeine. I don't take any kind of medications. I really think that, you know, what you do in the gym and what you put in your body for food and what you put in your body with conversations and people, it all matters. You know, when you're that vulnerable where I was at, everything mattered.
So it's what was attracting me to you is that I saw a person who feels the way you do, even though I didn't know that energy was coming out. And for me, I used to always be fit. I didn't have to do anything to be thin and in good shape. I just was.
Yeah.
And as you age and you stop doing those activities, then nature kicks in, hormones kick in, gravity kicks in, and everything changes.
Yeah.
And now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I weighed a 50-pound bag of dog food less than I weigh right now. And it's just, where did that even come from? How did this even happen? And then I started looking at kind of food and what I do with it. And I'm like, I deserve that. Yeah. So there's this reward thing. I deserve to have a piece of cake. Or I would tell myself something like, you know, you don't have to worry about that. You know strategically how to dress. You can pull that off and this, that, and the other. But it's getting to a point now where I can't pull it off anymore. And that's why when I saw you, I thought, okay, this could be the person, or this could be the place where I can learn what I need to learn to take it to the next level and to get back into a really good habit. Because I've never had the dream of being super fit, although now I have a dream of being 82, 84, 85, picking up my grandkids, throwing them in the air, being strong enough to get up. Yeah. Because I have an 88-year-old dad who is having challenges, and it's because he doesn't have the muscle strength. Yeah. So I think it's important. But when you were dreaming about your next move or feeling inspired by the Holy Spirit, how did it become Smithville? How did it become the gym? How did it become what it is today?
You know, that's interesting, because I think there's visions and then there's dreams.
Oh, I think they're different.
And they're different.
And so are goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that the Lord gave me a vision for that old beat up smog shop that sat on the corner that we would drive, and I'd be like, God, this thing is just awful. It floods on the corner. It's just an eyesore. And I have a nonprofit called the Sisterhood Collective.
What is that?
Yeah. So interesting enough, I've done worship out of all my businesses since I've had them. So for over a decade, just spontaneous worship, invite people in. And one day I was sitting on the gym floor, and I would pray a lot after clients. And I felt like the Lord was like, take the gym conversations, kind of like what we're doing here, and take it to a stage. I was like, what's that mean? And as I prayed, he had showed me like a panel of speakers and just invite more people into these conversations. They're raw, they're authentic, they're the off, you know, like the conversations people hide from, and I'll engage. And so I started this Sisterhood Collective. I asked a good friend of mine, I'm like, will you do this with me? She was like, I don't understand your vision. I reached out to the radio station. They're like, listen, Jess, it's hard for us to like wrap our head around what you're saying, but we know that you'll make it happen. So we're here for you. So it was kind of like a no, but a yes, like yes, no, maybe so. But so I found a venue. I put a panel of speakers together and sold tickets. And I thought, you know what? You know how hard it is to get people to come?
Oh, yeah.
It is hard.
Oh, yeah.
To ask money to get somebody to come to something. So I thought if I can get 50 people, I'd be happy. 275 women came. I mean,
that gave me goosies. That's good.
Crazy, right? And we talked about, I had somebody come in from Florida that talked about how her husband had an affair on her, basically lived a double life, and kind of like what that did to her spiritual and mental psyche. And then a lady that was facing IVF and not being able to have babies and what that was. And a widow that was in her 70s that was having to reclaim a new season of life. And as she would say, turn the lights back on and how to find love again at that age. And then I had shared my story. And so it just started building this thing. And we're in our 8th year right now, getting ready to have my next one in October.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah. So the Sisterhood Collective kind of built this thing about community, and I needed somewhere that I could have, because the last one we did, it's like 300-400 women now. And I'm like, I need a place that I can have these people meeting up once a month. And so I thought, well, I could do like a little coffee shop, and that could be the place, because it's very expensive to rent. And I wasn't making money off of it. I didn't want to pay out of pocket. So I'm like, well, if I own it, then I'm making money. And then you charge them to have them come to these, to be part of this community. So that's I was at the Blue Goose and I saw that building, and that's how it started. So it wasn't a dream, it was a vision, and the vision would not go away. The Lord would not take that vision out of me. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to see who owns this building, and I'm somebody that will take a risk and just research. Like, I don't know what I don't know. And so from there is why Smithville became Smithville. And funny enough, so Smithville's on the corner, and that is from God too, because it doesn't make sense if you look at it from a numbers perspective. I went into that building, and a week later, COVID happened. To open a restaurant during COVID, that doesn't make sense. The building was falling over. I couldn't get inspections for 8 months. I thought I would flip it in 3 months. 3 years it took me to renovate and open. So,
that's crazy.
But I'll tell you, there's this really cool moment there, and these are the things that happen for me. So I was like, Lord, I don't want to do this. This is not, like, I actually thought it was distracting me from what my dream was, and to make money, right?
So what were you thinking that dream was that it was distracting you from?
Well, I thought, with my fitness, and the sisterhood growing, I was speaking a lot, and I was traveling to do that. I was writing my book. So I just thought,
what's the name of your book?
It's called It's Not Supposed to Feel This Way.
Okay.
And so I just thought more of in that health and wellness space, and growing my brand in that way would be more of what, and I really also want and still want to learn more about real estate investing.
Okay.
And that is just something, I have a couple things, but it's something I aggressively want to go after. And so I would feel resentments over the fact that I had committed to something that was taking away. There's only so many hours in a day for me to be able to do that. And so I was literally still think that this is going to happen. It hasn't yet, but I thought, I'm going to meet whoever's supposed to help me with the real estate investing and teaching me through the cafe, because most people, 200-300 people come through there in a day, are looking for the people. Well, I just created the people. I have them. So now what's funny enough is that I am getting the networking daily, right? And it's on a much larger scale than I could have done if I was throwing an event, because people come in from the city, and because I developed that corner, they call me that I developed it. It gives me a different label. I didn't want that. That's not what I went in there and was running numbers. I'm going to develop this, but I did develop it, and I am bringing people to town. And so then that opens up a door for you. Yeah. And so I've learned to be strategic with that, not because that's who I am, but that's because the Lord gave me strategy.
So when you think moving forward, two things. What's your next dream? What's the next goal? Not goal, but big, hairy, I like to call them big, hairy dreams. Something that you think maybe I'll never get there, but in my head, I would love to have it. And then what's your dream for your children?
Yeah, such a good question. So I've been praying about this, and it's just become pretty clear. Everyone talks about generational wealth, right? And they're chasing that, and that's all you hear. And I too want to do, like, my big one would be like multiple apartment complexes, RV parks or something. Like, I know that sounds so crazy because it's not sexy at all what I'm saying, but the Lord has showed me that. But He has also shown me that I will give people generational health. And right now the world is so focused on generational wealth that they are giving up their generational health. And you cannot get here without here.
that. I love that.
So I feel like at some point He's going to bring into alignment something where it's going to be a beneficial partnership to where I'm also going to be giving, because I know nothing over here. I know nothing about the real estate, the numbers. I've signed up for classes and done that. But the problem is that I have a very busy life over here and I need somebody to fast track me.
But that's it. You can't have generational wealth without generational health. So I'm assuming that's what you want for your kids too.
So what do I want to give my kids? I want to give my kids generational health, right? And I do talk to them about, like, I wish and I don't think this was something that people spoke about back then, but like our time, freedom of time. I've spent because I was a young mom, since I was 17, and I would say I'm still in that stage of life where I hustle. And I haven't had a value on just slowing down until this last season.
Let me tell you that happens. Yeah. And wait till you're 62. I mean, because the number one commodity becomes time.
Yeah.
And if you sit at 62 and you think, okay, hopefully I'll be healthy.
Yeah.
I'm going to have maybe 20 more Christmases.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 more birthdays.
Yeah.
Where I'm cognitively good, where I'm, looking at my parents and looking at things, right?
Yeah.
So what a wonderful dream to offer up generational health. I think that's epic.
Because if you have the generational wealth, but you don't have the health, you'll never enjoy the wealth.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
this has been fantastic. And I'm going to work on my generational health because that is 100% very important.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay.
Let's go. I don't know what comes next.